Well, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Joyce Schnorr. I am the Vice President responsible for our financial services programs at Kaplan, which include the CFP program. I want to thank you for choosing Kaplan as you begin your CFP education. And today's webinar is really to help you get started on the right foot, to answer any questions that you have as we come up with the classes that we're beginning here in July. As I had said before, the phone lines are in listen-only mode, but if you would like to type in a question into the question box, please feel free to do that, and I'd be happy to answer the questions as we go through today's call. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So the agenda today is really to get you comfortable with all the tools and resources that you have available to you. We have, of course, written materials that come in the form of a student guide as well as the textbook and supplemental readings, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. We also, many of you are taking our virtual class. We will show you today how to access your virtual class, and as well as all of the students, whether you're in a virtual class or one of our traditional live classrooms, you have access to a lot of other online tools, which I will take and demonstrate for you today as well. First of all, let's talk about the written materials. As you begin this program for CFP certification, you will be taken through a series of 7 courses. The first 6 courses will be based on a grouped subject matter. So this first course is Fundamentals and Ethical Considerations. That will be followed up by an insurance course, then by investments, tax, retirement, and estate. The last course, the 7th course that you take, will be the capstone course, where you will put all these concepts together, develop a financial plan, and present it. So each one of the first 6 courses, you will receive a student guide. Some of you may have already received it. Some of it, depending on when you signed up, they might be being shipped to you as we speak. But that student guide is really the basis of what is going to be taught to you in class. Each student guide is separated into 10 sections or 10 units. At the end of each one of those units, you will have a quiz on that specific material, and then upon completion of all 10 units, there will be a case study presented to you where you'll have a quiz, and then finally a final exam. Now, the student guide, as I said, organized into those 10 units, are the basis of the curriculum. You will note at the beginning of each one of the chapters, each one of the units in the student guide, it may tell you to read some additional information in the textbook or in some supplemental readings. All of the textbooks, the student guide, the supplemental readings are all included in the package that you receive. There's no additional cost. And for the first course, Fundamentals, and the second course, Insurance, you'll be utilizing the Theory and Practice textbook that was sent to you. In the subsequent courses, the supplemental readings will be included in the student guide behind the various units. So those will be all of the written materials that you will be utilizing. Again, from a best practice perspective, we always tell students prior to the classes that you've read through the student guide, you've made some notes in the margins, questions that you want to ask, read the supplemental readings and the textbook materials. You will find as you go through this course, we have to teach you over 70 topics required by the CFP board. Many of you are professionals in the industry, and some of the information is going to be very familiar to you, things that you do in your everyday practice. And so therefore, getting through the material might be a little bit easier in some sections, and maybe you don't need to spend as much time in the textbook or the supplemental reading. But what I would caution you as you go through the program, there are going to be subject matter that is new to you, things that you don't normally spend a lot of time in your practice. We hear that a lot from our students, for example, when they get into the investment courses. They, provide investment advice to their customers all day. They talk about asset allocation and a number of different things, standard deviation and beta and all of those types of things. In this course, not only will you talk about them, but you'll actually do some calculations. So sometimes people find the investment formulas, while not new, the concepts aren't new to them, actually calculating those items are new. And again, when people get into the tax course or perhaps the estate course, those might be new concepts that are available to them. The purpose and why I'm telling you this now is that we're here to support you as you go through the program. We're here to support you not only by the classes that you take and the written materials that you receive, but the online tools that you have available to help supplement you when you're running into subject matter that is perhaps different or more difficult than you're used to seeing. So a little bit about the written materials. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the testing here in a bit. You also, via online, will have your virtual class access. I'm going to show you how to do that. And we have other course tools, which include where you can get help. So obviously attending class and asking your instructor at that time, getting your questions answered is very important. But outside of class time, we have instructor email access. We have a concept we call office hours. So just like when you were in college and the professor was in from, I don't know, Wednesdays from 12 to 1, we have that same sort of concept. And we also have some core lecture videos to help supplement your learning. So I think what might be helpful at this time, if you allow me, I am going to actually switch my screen here and go into the website to show you how you can access all of these tools. So just give me a second and I will do that. Okay. Now you should see on your screen the slazer.com website, and that's our main, main landing page. It lists all of the various programs that we have. But what's important here is you need to log in to your account, and you can do that a couple of different ways. Up here on the right-hand side, you see the login button. You can click on that, and then for some reason, because you know you're a CFP student, if you simply click on the CFP page, that login button is the very same place in the upper right, and you simply need to click on that, and this will take you to the login page. So give me a second here. This is always the scary part of doing a live demo, is that I type in my username and password appropriately, and I have, so very good. Now once you log in, this is what you should see on your screen. Across the top will tell you what course you're currently in. So this is very important. This is the most important thing to tell you from the outset. Over here you see a button that says CFP. When you take your cursor and roll over that, there's a drop-down box that shows you all of the courses that you have access to. So this is my demo account, and you'll see 101 in there. EPR is our review program in 107. So this happens to be what courses list in my demo account. As you move forward throughout the program, you will roll over the CFP tab and you'll see 101, followed by 102, 103, 104, and so forth. The nice thing about our program is once you complete a course, you continue to have access to those materials until you complete the program and sit for the exam. So therefore, in the future, if you, for example, are in income tax and you want to go back and check a concept that you learned in fundamentals, you can always go back and do that. And this is how you do it, by rolling over and choosing the course. So I'm going to choose 101, and I see at the top of the screen here, Course 101, Fundamentals and Ethical Considerations. This is my online access. Now, on the screen, there is, on the right-hand side, important tools information for you. So when is the next exam date? Obviously, you're just signing up to begin the course, so you're not taking the exam July 18th of 2014. It'll be 2015. But we also have documents, PDFs, that are course guides. As you begin the program, I highly suggest that you at least open that up, print it out, as you go through that. There's notes from frequently asked questions on if you're in a traditional class, or most of you in this call are in a virtual program. There's FAQs on that. And then there's instructional demos here. Basically, those demos are the same thing that I'm showing you here. So if you don't catch a concept or you're confused about how to do something, you might want to watch, one of the demos that are on the right. on the left-hand side of your screen are really where you access the course. So I'm going to take you through these various sections. The first section is basically your account, your login, administrative type of things. Download, so for example, I'll click on that button, and if you don't have Adobe, you can download and get Adobe and so forth. So that's all that information is there. Then we have a series of tabs which are online instruction, the QBank, your online tools, and then additional information. So let's see the online instruction. You'll see the virtual class. I'm going to start with the virtual class. And again, most of you on the phone are in the virtual class. If you are not in a virtual class, you're in one of our traditional classes, you will see everything that I'm showing you here on the left-hand navigation except this particular tab. So I'm going to click on this now, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time in this. This is where you actually access your class. So you will see any documents that we'd like to provide to you in the form of a syllabus or any additional information. We put up here in the course outline and the supplemental documents again. They are all PDFs, and you can simply open up that PDF and it will tell you what you need to know. Really important as you pay attention to the course, when are the class dates, and what are your requirements. So I'm going to slide down this PDF here, and the first class for the virtual class begins July 7th. In the binder, the student guide is going to cover Units 1 and 2, and here's the supplemental readings we suggest to you, and then you can go through all of the class dates through July the 23rd. You will note here in red that while your last class concludes on July the 23rd, you have until August 6th, basically 2 weeks after, to complete all of your quizzes, the case quiz, and your final exam. Now, again, best practice. What I suggest to people is that as you're going through the courses, like here you're doing Unit 1 and Unit 2 on July 7th, and then July 9th you have next unit. Set a time after those classes to do the quizzes to make sure that you are, really have those concepts, or perhaps do them in the first weekend that's available to you to do that as well. And I think that that'll allow you to keep up, because far too many students wait until close to this August 6th date, and then they're trying to cram in all of this coursework, and it's just not good study practice to do it that way. So that's your syllabus that you can access at any time, print out if you need, and there's some supplemental documents as well that we'll refer to in the class. Now, continuing to look on this virtual class tab, you see 3 tabs here in the middle: events, quizzes and final exam, and requirements. I'm going to click on the requirement tab for a second, and this is where you're going to do a system check, just to make sure that our systems are compatible with yours. And you have plenty of time until July 7th to call in. If there's some issue that comes in, to call into our tech support, and they'll help you work through that. So always do a system check. And then here's the events. When I go back to that tab, you'll see your first class. Now, it just so happens this enrollment for me is the 7:30 Eastern start. We also have the 9 o'clock Eastern start, so depending on what class you're enrolled in, you're going to see something different. This is the link that you will utilize to go into the actual class. So I'll show you how to do this, and I'll show you what will happen right now. But it'll basically say the presentation may not be entered until July 7th. Again, the class isn't in existence. And 6:30, which the class begins at 7:30, so don't be confused. You're just allowed into this system an hour before the class begins. All right. The nice thing about this is that all of the classes are immediately after the class and the next morning archived. So for some reason you missed class on July 7th, you will have the archived version of that class as the instructor went through the night before, available in the morning. Obviously, we highly suggest that you attend classes live because you can ask questions. We have teaching assistants on the line, so you get almost one-on-one, instruction back, for some of our larger classes. So you miss that in the archive version, but we understand that sometimes family obligations, your job responsibilities do get in the way. And if you wanted to print out the slides that are going to be presented in the class, you can download those slides, print them out, and take notes on them if you prefer. Some students like that approach. Other students will take notes directly in the student guide binder. So it's really up to you to kind of figure out what works best for you. But all of the slides that the instructors will be presenting are available to you in hard copy. All right. So that's how you access all of the classes. The center tab here that says Quizzes and Final Exam. This is where you will actually take your quizzes and your exam. You do not have to go to a testing center. You don't have to make any of those type of accommodations. Right now the class hasn't started, so the quizzes and the final exam are not available to you. But when they are, this box in the center of the screen will populate, and you can go in and take your quizzes. Very important to note, and all of this information is located in the student guide PDF as well that I mentioned in the front. But each one of your quizzes, you have 40 minutes to complete. Each quiz, there's one quiz for each unit, and that's 10 questions, and you have 40 minutes to do that. You will have a case quiz, which you'll have 60 minutes to do that, and your final exam will have 50 questions, and you have, I think, 200 and some minutes to do that. Very important. I'm mentioning the minutes because once you start a quiz, you have to finish that quiz. And so therefore you can't start it, stop it, go do something else, come back an hour or two later, finish the quiz. Your time will have ran out. So make sure when you're sitting down and doing the quizzes, you have dedicated time to get through them. Again, we allow you 40 minutes for a 10 question quiz. Some of the material you're going to know and you're going to be able to get through more quickly. Some of the information is a little bit more difficult, and so therefore it might take you a little bit of time. So please do plan accordingly, and that's why I mentioned that August 6th date. If you wait and to try and do all of that and have that much dedicated time, you might run afoul of some time constraints. Okay. Now let's talk about the grading for this. I have a few questions that have come in to the queue. So the way that the grading works is that you'll have the 10 quizzes plus the case quiz. All of those in total add up to 30% of your grade. The final exam will be 70% of your grade. Those in combination, we require that you get a 70% total, across both the quizzes and the final exam in order to pass the course. So you have one attempt with the quizzes and with the final exam. If you do not get a 70%, which happens, we do provide you a secondary final exam in order for you to complete the course. The nice thing is, as you're going through these courses, and let's say that you don't get the 70% and you have to take the secondary exam, we allow you to continue on to the next course. We give you 30 days or so to finish that secondary final exam so you can keep up with the program. It doesn't set you behind. Okay? So again, your quizzes count for 30% of your grade. Your final exam counts for 70% of your grade. And overall, you need to get a 70%. So take the quizzes very seriously. They actually, they help your score very much so. All right, and again, a question came in, how long is the final exam? I'm trying to remember. I think it's like 220 minutes, I think we give you. I think it's like 4 hours to complete that. Okay? So again, if you're in the virtual class, you will click on the virtual class tab. you will see in front of you the events. This is how you get into the classes. You will click on quizzes and final exam to take your quizzes and final exam when you want to, and then always do the requirement check, the system check. Now, for those of you that are in a traditional class, that means our 4-day classes, you will be taking your quizzes and your final exam live in the class. You won't have access to this quiz engine. Okay. Now, a couple of good questions have come in I just want to stop and address. First of all, how do you recommend we read the material? Read it all before the class, or just read the materials of the class at the start of each class? You know, as I had showed you, let me go back to the events tab here. You see that you have certain units due July 7th, July 9th, July 10th, and then we have a weekend, and then we cover, some of the other units that are a little bit meatier. I think personally, I like to take on information in bits and chunks, and so I would read the units that are upcoming. I would read the supplemental materials and really have a good grasp of that before I get into the class. Some people do read the book kind of cover to cover, the student guide, before they get to class. It really is your best learning style, but we find that doing it in chunks is a little bit more efficient for you, and from an instructional design perspective, more likely to have success. There's a question that came in from someone who's actually auditing the course. So this happens, a lot of times people might have started a CFP program several years ago, or perhaps they're a CPA and they don't need to take the education program per the CFP rules. They will audit because they still need to know the information. We just don't record your scores, but you have access to all the tools here to make sure that you're getting the concepts. Okay. All right, so that's the online instruction. As I said before, when you're in class, you absolutely have the ability to ask questions, but if you are outside of class, you can send an email to the instructor email. We actually have full-time subject matter experts on staff that write the materials. They're the ones that will answer your questions. A lot of our instructors teach for us, and our CFPs in the field, that's our preference, that they're actually applying this concept. But the instructor email access box are manned by our subject matter experts, and they'll get back to you generally within 24 hours. We also have, I'm just going to slide down here, our instructor-led office hours, and I've clicked on that link. And once you begin in class, you will have access to various office hours that are up here, and you will literally go in. We have a subject matter expert available to ask any questions on that subject that you have. So again, 3 ways to get help: in class, instructor email, the instructor office-led hours. Now, going back to the left-hand navigation, I want to show you another really important feature, and that is our question bank. So this is not the graded aspect of your course. I showed you under quizzes and final exam in your virtual class where the quiz engine is. This is practice, pure practice for you. And a lot of times people will read a unit and go to class and learn about it, and then before they take the quiz, they might want to do some practice questions to make sure that they are up to speed on the subject matter. And so here's where you can take practice questions, do as many as you like, and we have a question bank that's specific for this course. And so if I went into this, I want to create a new quiz. Let me just demonstrate how this works. We have 218 practice questions in here. They're not the same questions that you'll see on the quizzes and the final exam. And you can create a quiz for yourself. So let's say that we just did time value of money and education funding. Those are very important concepts, and you can tell that by the number of questions that we have in those categories. Some of the other topics we're required to teach you, but they have, they're not as difficult or lower applicability. So let's just pick these two topics. I'm going to slide my bar down. I'm always, best practice in my mind, click on advanced quiz options so I can get basic, intermediate, or advanced. You can tell, whatever type of questions you want. I always like to click score as you go so that I know if I got the question right or wrong. Some people like to wait until the end when they're done. It's, just preference. And I also like to say display the answers and explanation because that gives you immediate feedback and rationale to why your answer was correct or why it was incorrect. So I'm going to call this quiz 1, and I can do up to 100 questions, but I'm just going to choose 20 here. And I can print it out and take it on with me to do, and then come back into the electronic side and put in my answers and get the rationale. So let's do that. I'm going to create an electronic quiz, and this is how it works. I'm just going to choose A here and hit the arrow key, and it's going to tell me my answer was incorrect, what is the correct answer, and what is the rationale. And I click the arrow key. Again, I'll choose A, and it's going to tell me I was correct. Here we go. Another one, and so forth and so on as I go through this. And it will allow me to go through all of these various questions. And I can go back in as many times as I like and, click through the various questions and so forth. Okay? Now, at any time, I can go back to quiz management, and I can see that that quiz 1 that I just started to take, I didn't finish, and I can continue it. And then once I'm done with it, it tells me which questions, again, I missed or I got correct. I can print it out if I want to look at those questions again. I can rename and I can delete it, whatever the case may be. And so therefore, this is a very powerful tool. And you'll find that you'll use it as you go through the courses to really supplement sections that you might be struggling with before you take the graded exam. Okay? So all of the questions are in multiple choice form, just like they are in the CFP board exam. And I had a good question that came in on the financial calculator, which I'm going to show you here in just a second. So hold off on that one. So again, what we call the Swayzer Pro Q Bank are practice questions. And if I went back in and tried to create a new quiz again, and you see that same 218, these are just the questions that are on the subject matter in Course 101 that we're talking about. So when you get into the second course, which is insurance, and the third course, investments, you will have an all-new question bank to practice. So each course has between 200 and 300 questions available to you, and that's what I said. As you go through the program, you can toggle back and forth between the courses if you want to go back and reuse something. So it's very helpful for you from that perspective. Okay, so that's the Q Bank. I want to go down here to the core lecture videos. We find that there's certain subject matter that is more difficult. Sometimes it takes a couple times hearing it, seeing it to understand. We have built out these core lecture videos. Again, the ones that you see here are specific for fundamentals. And one of the more difficult topics we find in a lot of cases is the time value of money. Whether or not people understand the concept of time value of money, but maybe you haven't done those calculations. So that'll be taught to you in your course, but we've also done some videos. And for example, I'm going to click on the time value of money basic calculation here. And this is our current, I'm going to cut the sound out so it doesn't interfere. This is our current interface. I do want to tell you, all of you that starting in July with the program, we are actually working on the interface. It might look a little bit different, a little bit more powerful moving forward. But this is what you'll see when you start class. You'll have an instructor talking to you live, and then you'll have the slide area. Now, this is one of the lecture videos, and we actually take you through how to utilize your financial calculator. For some of you, this is going to be very helpful. Others of you really understand your financial calculator, not so much. So we will teach you the time value of money concepts using an HP 10B2 Plus calculator. That's what's demonstrated here. So if you haven't bought a financial calculator, that's the one we suggest you buy. It's the least expensive, about $30, $35. It does all of the calculations that you need it to do. We will show you all of the keystrokes. You know, people want to spend a lot of money, $90 or $100 on programmable calculators and so forth. The CFP board doesn't allow you to utilize them in the exam because they'll clear out the memory, so you can't have any, formulas programmed in there. So don't spend the money on something that you're not going to be able to use. Some of you may have used a Texas Instruments or a Sharp or the 12C. Please feel free to use those. I mean, those are perfectly fine calculators, but for those of you that haven't used a financial calculator, we teach from the HP 10B2 Plus, and that's what's demonstrated here. And this is the video interface that you'll see, and you can see the buttons being clicked and the keystrokes and everything on the class. All right, so I'm going to close down this presentation, and again, where I found it was these core lecture videos. They're listed here that you can read through. Okay. All right, a couple of questions come in. What was the name of the calculator? The Hewlett-Packard 10B2 Plus financial calculator. All right. So that is the core lecture videos. We talked about the office hours. We have blogs that we put out there from time to time. And then if there's any additional information, updates we want to provide to you, if you want to report where you think there's a mistake, you can report that in errata as well, and we'll check that out for you. So this is the left-hand navigation. And again, just to kind of review what I showed you, the top part is administration, really. The next part is online instruction. So if you're in a virtual class, this is where you click on your virtual class to go into the class and to take your graded quizzes and final exam. You have access, everybody has access to instructor email, the question bank that we showed, the core lecture videos I showed you, the office hours, and then updates and errata. So these are all of your online tools. And again, just to reinforce, up here where it says CFP, roll over that and you can go back and forth. So I'm currently in my 101 fundamentals, you see at the top of the screen. If I wanted to go into 107, I simply click that. It takes me into the 107 course. Okay. All right. I'm going to go back to my slide deck here. Hold on. There we go. Resuming my slideshow. And these are all the things that we just talked about: the virtual class, the quiz engine, other course tools. I know I have a lot of other questions to answer here, so I will get to your questions in here just a second. Really, the only other thing that I just wanted to mention is your commitment to the class. Read your reading assignments prior to the class. Do any homework problems that your instructor may suggest to you in the Q bank. Participate. Ask questions. And we usually recommend that you study an hour or two out of the classroom for every hour in class. And that includes your study time, your quizzes, your final exam. The one thing that I always like to point out to individuals is that this is a long process. We're here to support you. There's a lot of subject matter, at least over 70 topics. Some of the stuff you're going to get, and you do very well. You're going to run into subjects where you're not as good at. Don't get frustrated. We're helped you to get through all of those parts, and so therefore use the tools for the parts that are more difficult for you. Watch the core lecture videos. Go back into your archived classes and say, listen, is that what the instructor said? And go back. Do question banks. Practice those questions before you take the quizzes and the exams, and you will be successful. Okay. I'm just going to put this slide up now, and then I'm going to answer a lot of the questions that I have in the queue as well. You know, we are really here to help you. Many of you signed up for our program from your designation specialist, and their phone numbers are there. You might have their direct line. Please feel free to reach out to them if you have questions. But we have a full academic advisory team, and now that you're in the program, questions, concerns that you have, you know, their email is advisor@kaplan.com. They're specific to CFP. They will help you get through the program. And then obviously we have our technical support line as well. So if you do your systems requirements and you're having some issues, they're the ones that can help you work through that. Okay, so let me go back. And this is really the part of the presentation I've presented what I wanted to. And really just open it up for any questions. I've tried to answer some of the questions as I've gone through. So a big question that I had several times, and I've put this off to the end, has to do with the iPad and so forth. So several parts of our system are iPad compatible when it comes to doing, you know, questions and so forth. I told you about we're changing the look and the feel of the video that's being streamed, and that process is happening in the next few months. And when that occurs, the classes will be fully compatible with iPads and so forth. We have had some people that have had success, you know, getting on the iPad, but we're changing that back-end video stream, and so that it will be compatible with iPads at that point. So we're really excited about that. And because you all are starting this process in July, you'll have the benefit when that transition occurs, because you'll be taking classes with us, you know, really through the first quarter of next year. So you'll be seeing that new technology. So I hope that answered those questions. Any other questions that I have? I think I've cleared my queue. I am going to stay on and answer any questions as long as they keep coming in. All right. There's a flashcard app. We have a flashcard app that's out there that allows you to get through all of the, you know, the 6 major subject areas. Again, fundamentals, insurance, investments, tax, retirement, and estate. And that app is like a standard flashcard type of app. It's really to help you to, it's knowledge-based, really to help you understand the definitions and so forth. Some people love flashcards. That's what they used when they were studying for Series 7 and so forth, and that's one of the reasons that, you know, that we developed it. And so it's very useful from that perspective. And if that's how you learn, if you like that type of thing, you know, I would say absolutely. Personally, I never really used flashcards when I was studying for different things, so it's not necessarily something that I would utilize. But a lot of our students do. They like that constant reinforcement and going through that. All right, specific questions. All right. There's a question that came in from someone who is a CPA that's kind of specific. And so what I would suggest to you is that you send an email to our advisor at Kaplan.com, and we can talk to you about that process. All right, so another question. Does it make sense to print out the unit slides, or is it more dependent on how you study? You know, I will tell you that I think what happens generally in talking with a lot of students, when the first classes begin and they see the slides, they feel like they need the slides in front of them, and so we provide them to you the whole way through the course. And so people print them out and take notes. I think as the progression through the program happens, though, a lot of times what students will tell me is they start printing out the slides and they start taking notes in the student guidebook. You know, the slide material is very similar to what you see in the student guides, just broken down in smaller chunks, and it really is what you become comfortable with, but I do know that that's what a lot of students tell me. All right, any other questions for me? As I said, I'm going to stay along as long as there's questions coming in. I really do appreciate you choosing Kaplan for your CFP program. I realize that there's a lot of options out there, but we're really excited about the programs that we offer and the successes that we have. So again, thank you for your support. All right, I don't see any other questions. A last call here, and I will be ending the webinar. Again, write down these numbers, any specific help that you need. My team is really there to help you. All right, with that, I see a lot of people logging off. I think I'm going to log off myself. Thank you again, and good luck.